Okay, guys, record a video. Hopefully you can hear me normally and everything's fine. This video is going to tell you how to install a EverStart Max 1000 watt power inverter in a 2022 International semi-truck. It's very simple, and I'm going to give you 3 or 4 ways to install the power inverter. The quick way is really quick. In the quick way, you can install the power inverter in probably 10 minutes max, if you do it right. The proper way, or quote-unquote proper way, or the long way, you can install it in about an hour. For the proper way, I'll begin with that. What you're going to need is a socket set, and I can't remember the size of the socket. I believe it's 5/16. And you're going to need some screwdriver bits and bit heads, like an assortment of set there. And the bit that you need is one of the star shapes. So if you get the assortment, and it has the star-shaped heads, then you should have the right screwdriver tip to take out the screw. So, if you're riding an International 2022 or earlier, it should really be the same if it's within 4 years of this truck. So, what you do is you're in the driver's seat, you want to get out of the driver's seat, and you want to close the door. You want to be looking at the door. Okay, now look slightly down towards the steps. There are 2 steps, and the steps have a grating on them. The first step is you're going to remove 4 screws, large screws or bolts, with your 5/16 socket set. And when you look at the first set of steps, you're going to see a total of 4 screws, 2 to the right, 2 to the left. So on the screws, let's look at the right side. There are 2 screws. One is closer to the door, one is further away from the door. On the screw that's closer to the door, that's the screw that's holding onto the mount bracket of the truck where your steps are mounted. You're going to take off that screw, and then on the left side, the left 2 sets, there's another 2 screws. There's a screw closer to the door. You're going to take off that screw. So on that particular step, there are only 2 screws that you're going to remove. That one on the left, one on the right. On the bottom set of steps, it's the exact same. It's the screw that is closest to the door. And the screws that are on the outside, you do not need to remove at all. So on your 2 steps, you're going to remove a total of 4 screws only. Very easy, very simple. In my example, or in my case, when I did it, I removed the 4 screws, and my socket wrench was broken, so it took a little bit longer. I'm going to say 10 to 15 minutes just to remove 4 long bolts. So you remove the 4 long bolts, and once you remove that, now the entire step side panel is able to be pulled out. Be careful, it's quite heavy, at least 40 pounds I would say, or more, and it's kind of awkward. So you grab the bottom, you can open the little battery door to get another handle, and you kind of jiggle it, wriggle it up, down, left and forth, check where it's snagged, and you should be able to just pull it right out. Hopefully that's the case with you, because that was the case with mine. So now you've got the main panel off, and you can see there should be, I think there's 4 to 6 batteries just under the area where your driver's seat is. You can see full access to them. The next thing you need to do is you need to take off, there's kind of a guardrail on the floor. So So if you, let's say, imagine you're sitting in the driver's seat, your left foot as in the doorway, kind of what I would call a kind of guardrail that seals down the floor mat, the rubber floor mat that's secured all across the floor. That's the guardrail that you're going to remove. And that guardrail has four star-shaped screw bits, screws. So you're going to get that bit from your assortment screw bit set. You're going to remove those 4 screws. I believe it's 4. I had a drill so they came out very quickly. Zip, 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 pull them out. Once you pull them out, set those aside. Now this door guard mat jam area piece will come off. You pull that off, and towards the rear of your back a little bit, what you're going to see is a black round inverter had on 2 screw loops, which you would unscrew on the inverter end, put the loop in, and screw them down. Very simple. And on the other end, they have alligator clamps. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a screwdriver and you're going to pop out that knockout. You get it from the top, get your screwdriver in, pry it in, and pop out that knockout. Then there you have a big hole. What you're going to do is take the wires, feed them through that hole from the bottom, and pull them out the top. You're obviously going to pull in the screw loop side so that the alligator clamps are now kind of locked into the battery side where the batteries are located. And then once you've got that pulled through, you want to go get back inside of your truck carefully because the steps are gone now. And you're going to take those screw loops and connect them to your power inverter. There's going to be 2 screws, one for black, one for red. The cables are also color-coded, black and red. Move the screws, screw them down. Once those are screwed down onto your inverter, you want to push it towards that hole as much as you can so you have a bunch of slack to connect batteries. You're going to get out of the truck, get inside that battery well, and you're going to see on the right side there is a black lead and there's a red lead coming off of the battery terminal. Off of the battery terminal where there are 2 screws holding down the current cables that are there to use the batteries, there are these not super long, but kind of short and yet long angled brackets like this. And those are actually there so that you can put a clamp, put a alligator clamp onto those brackets. It's exactly what they're there for. Some kind of alligator clamp or any kind of clamp. That's what those little bars are there to do. It's very convenient because that's exactly how I'm going to connect it, because if I do that, it'll be easy to disconnect in the event that I want to disconnect it. So, again, first I'm going to connect. Oh, before you connect the battery, you want to disconnect your vehicle from the battery. If you're sitting in the vehicle, you're sitting in the driver's side of the vehicle, on your left side on the floor, there's a switch. That switch is the battery disconnect switch. You just turn it, I believe, to the right or the left, one way, and boom. And you've just cut all power to the vehicle. So you want to make sure you cut that switch so that when you're connecting the battery, there's no power going to the vehicle. So cut that off, then get back down. You've connected the black clamp to the negative side. Now you're going to connect the red clamp to the red side. And that, when you touch the clamp to the battery, there should be a small spark, not a large explosion, not a large spark, not a big deal. connected to the red side. Both of the red and the black clamps are now connected and secure. You can now, well, before you cut back on the battery, you want to make sure that you put back all of these panels that you just took off. So you can pull back a little bit of slack through the cable, the knockout hole, so you have enough to move your inverter back and forth. And then you're going to put that foot guardrail back inside of the door jamb area. You're going to secure it down. The cable's now kind of coming out to the front side. If you're on the ground looking at the doorway, you're going to secure that back, line up the holes, screw down the 4 screws. Okay, then you're going to try and attempt to put back on the main floor steps or the steps to the vehicle panel back on the truck. Now, of course, you're going to lift it up. You're going to put it back into place as best you can. Make sure that it's all in the proper place, nothing's popping out, and that the holes are all lined up, all 4 of them. And when you do that, you've got it all lined up. You can get your 4 screws at least started, right? What's going to happen most likely is you're going to knock those alligator clamps off of their terminals, the ones that you just connected. Don't worry about that. Once you've got it kind of at least halfway screwed into place, you want to open up that little battery access panel, and you only have a little bit of room, so it's not, you don't have a lot of hand space, but they haven't knocked off too far, so just make sure you put the battery clamps, alligator clamps, back on the battery terminal bars or connectors. Put it, reach your hand in there, do the best you can. First the black and then the red. Make sure you kind of jiggle them a little bit so that you can see that the alligator clamps are secure. A little jiggling and vibrations are not going to just knock them off. So once you've done that, you can secure down your bolts. Secure down the 4 bolts. Once you've secured back down the 4 bolts, you can go ahead and turn back on the battery cutoff switch. You can turn on your vehicle, check your voltmeter. Should be reading 14 volts as normal on your dash display. There's a little joystick on the right back rear side of your wheel on the dash side, and it has an OK with the 4 arrows. You can kind of scroll through your little gauges, and you can find, I think under my gauges, you can find your voltmeter. You ever want to run, in my opinion, you should never draw power from that inverter, which comes from your batteries, from the vehicle when your vehicle is not running. So when you're at night and you're just relaxing, let's say you've got your computer or something that's drawing a lot of power while you're in your rest period or during the night, you want to make sure that the vehicle is always running. Because in the case that your vehicle stops running in the middle of the night and you're drawing, let's say, a constant 200 watts or whatever, guess what? You just fell asleep, you drained your entire fucking battery, and now in the morning, your car won't start, your truck won't start. This is why it's good to have an APU, an alternate power unit, on your truck. It's the modern thing that kind of everyone will have or should have in their truck. Some companies don't have them, especially if these internationals. So just be aware, you do not want to draw a large amount of energy from your battery when the truck is not operational. Now, your truck actually has a lot of protections to protect the battery from draining fully, already in place automatically without you doing anything at all. If you've tried it before, and I have, just plug in your phone, turn on the lights in your vehicle with no inverter, sit back in your bed, turn on the radio, Again, the vehicle's off. Run the radio, Bluetooth through your speakers, play some music, whatever. Do all these things that are sucking up power for a couple of hours, and what's going to happen is it's going to say battery stage level 1 cutting off. So it's going to cut off the USB ports, it's going to cut off some of the lights, it might cut off the radio speakers, it will start to cut the power off different things because it knows that it's going to draw too much power. And then it'll go even further. And then the rest of the lights that you kept on, if you go for like another 30 minutes, an hour, it's going to cut off. Battery use level 2, it's going to say. And then it's going to cut off your lights. Now you have no power in your vehicle. Your batteries still have power, but you're not able to use the lights, the USB, the radio, nothing, without starting the vehicle, because your vehicle has gone into a battery safety lockdown mode. This is normal and this is good because it protects your battery from being drained fully. So, even if I'm wrong and you don't run the vehicle at night and you decide to drain power using the inverter and this all happens, great. That's a good thing. It'll shut it off your use from the power. But what if, because you connected directly to the battery, it's not able to shut you off? Uh-oh. Now it can't stop you from draining the power. You're connected directly to the battery. This is why some companies try and stop you from connecting to the battery at all, because they don't want you to have to deal with this kind of annoying problem where you need a start, a jump start in the middle of the highway or something like that, or some stupid place. I don't know. Anyways, this is why you should be very careful with the power inverter, and you should never run it unless you have an APU running, set to automatic or whatever, or your vehicle is running. Just be very careful. That was a long, lengthy explanation about how your battery system will work with your international vehicle and how you can install it the long way from the long way how you can install it the long way, which in my case it took me about an hour because to install it the long way because my ratchet tool kind of broke on me, wasn't working properly. So now I'm going to tell you another way you can do it. 2 more ways. Here's a faster way. Instead of taking off the front step panel, you don't even have to do that if you're kind of crafty, thrifty, and maybe let's say you're in a hurry. Okay, then just take off the door guard panel. It's 4 simple screws, and if you have a screw gun, zip, 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 boom. Okay, now you've got access to the hole. Pry out the hole, pop in the giggle, open the little access door on the side, stick your hand in there, connect the batteries, connect the inverter. Okay, boom, you're done. That's method number 2. Now I'll tell you method number 3, the fastest way, which you might have to use if you don't have all the proper tools, but you need to get your inverter in your 2022 International. This may or may not be recommended, but hey, maybe sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Tutorial, you've got your 1000 watt, I forget what it's called, this 1000 watt Walmart inverter. Okay, so the same setup. So instead of taking off those 2 panels, you're going to have to make a judgment call based on where I told you the knockout is. So I'm going to tell you where it is again. The knockout is, let's say you're standing on the ground facing your door, the door is open, you're looking inside, you can see the driver's seat, you can see to the left, the kind of the front of the seat, you can see to the right, to the rear of the seat. So on the rear of the seat side, towards that little guardrail that you would take off in the previous examples, you're going to feel on the mat, that is where the knockout is. You're going to take a knife and you're going to make a slit in the rubber mat. I would say how long? About 2, maybe 3 inches long. Probably only 2 is all you need. Just a straight line, a slit in the mat about at least 2 inches towards the seat, going from the guard towards the seat. You're going to slit that mat, which if you found the placement properly of that knockout, boom, you're gold. Then what you're going to do is you're going to pull the excess that's underneath the rail guard, the foot guard, pull it out the corners. 1, 2. Now you've got access to the exact same knockout without removing any screws in the vehicle at all, which is great. Okay, so you've got access to the knockout. Take a little screwdriver or a knife or something or a key and jam it under there, pop out the knockout. You've got a big hole now. Pull the battery cables in through. It's going to be a little bit harder because you have less arm room. You're going to have to go down to the battery compartment, open up the little access panel, shove your arm through, but now you've got a hole so you can kind of see where it is. Shove your arm through there and feed those cables through with one hand, grab it with the other hand, and pull them through. Connect the inverter on one side, and then come back and connect the alligator clamps to the battery side. Now you've connected everything, you haven't removed any screws from the vehicle, and so you might want to just finish it up with trying to push those corners that you took out back underneath the foot guard rail. And maybe if you want to be extra scrupulous, take a piece of black tape or gray tape or whatever and put it on the slit where you cut in the mat. And that is the quickest way. I imagine you could do that in maybe 10 minutes, and if you're thrifty and in a hurry, maybe faster, who knows. Anyways, this ends my explanation of how to gain access to the battery panel and install an inverter in potentially 10 minutes on your 2022 International semi-truck. It's very simple. I was shocked at how easy it was, and so far so good. I've been using the inverter, and one of the great things I learned about the inverter is it has a power button on it, and it has a digital readout that tells you how many watts you're using. So I would be using my computer, which is only sucking up 200 watts. I thought it was going to pump way more power. It's not. But it has a power button, and when you're done using, say, you can tell because if you have a power strip, the lights come on the power strip, and the lights just come right on, which is great. It's an awesome feature. I love it. One kind of strange thing I had happened to me when I first used the inverter, and this is another reason why I bought the inverter, because my truck was very dirty when I first got it, and I wanted to clean it out. But in order to properly clean it out, I could use either a broom, which I didn't have at the time, or I could use a vacuum. So I bought a $35 shop vac style of vacuum from Walmart. I plugged it into the converter. I tried to turn on the vacuum, and I heard some beeps, and the inverter wasn't working. So I thought, oh, okay, that's weird. So I found a little trick that would allow it to work. So I just turned off the inverter. I turned on the power switch of the vacuum, and then turned on the inverter again, so that when I turned on the inverter, the power would just start drawing immediately from the vacuum onto the inverter. The vacuum would just be on immediately, and that worked. It worked for at least a short time. I don't think it was drawing that much power, but for whatever reason, my power inverter did not like that shop vac style of vacuum cleaner. I was able to get it working at least to a minimal amount, so I could do a little bit of vacuuming in my truck. That was my experience. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this was helpful for you. Alright guys, thank you so much. Goodbye.